Spring is in the air, and you know what that means? Pretty bad allergies. No, but really, so because it's spring, and this was actually the most requested personal injury lawsuit that we obtained. So I figured that it's about time that we talk about this. Today we'll be discussing the never-ending insanity, or at least it feels that way, of the now Bayer-Monsanto Roundup weed killer cancer personal injury lawsuit. All right, so welcome again everyone to Mizan Coaching, or Dr. Mizan Coaching. I'm Dr. Mizan. I'm a medical legal consulting physician. I run my own business where I help patients, doctors, healthcare facilities, even attorneys, etc. Whoever needs to learn anything about the medical legal sector, that's what I do and my team does. And this YouTube channel really is to sort of give this very niche information to the public. And I personally believe in, number one, justice, and number two, that information and knowledge should be public. And I feel privileged that I'm part of this sector that only a few people have been trained to be a part of, so here we are. Okay, watch my other videos. I talk a lot about my own journey from being a family medicine physician to receiving certifications in medical ethics and jurisprudence. And now I do medical legal consulting full-time. It's a dream come true. I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity. Okay, all right. So let's talk about the Bayer-Monsanto Roundup cancer lawsuit. So firstly, let's define a few terms, because that's important, right? We need to define things. So what is Roundup? So those of us who grew up in the United States in the 90s, Roundup is ubiquitous. Like it's a household name. It's a weed killer. I'll go ahead and just read this little snippet from this website that does a really good job introducing what Roundup is. All right. So Roundup is a popular residential and commercial weed killer made with glyphosate. So the chemical we're going to be talking about here is called glyphosate. Farmers, landscapers, agricultural workers, and also just people like homeowners who have a yard, including I'm pretty darn sure that I grew up with a bottle of Roundup in our garage. But anyway, so we've been using it since 1974. However, some studies have linked heavy glyphosate use to an increased risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma and other cancers. And we're going to talk more about it in this video, but it's not just NHL, which is non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and some other cancers. It's also a bunch of other organic diseases. So the word organic in the medical world means of the body. So we sort of dissociate psychiatric illnesses. We don't consider them organic issues, even though if you go into neuropsychiatry, it actually is organic because it's levels of neurotransmitters, etc. But anyway, there is evidence that there is neurological, meaning CNS, PNS, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system injuries that is causatively linked to glyphosate. I say causatively with sort of air quotes because we actually have some information, but as of now, it's more of a correlation, but there is some evidence that it may be causative. So in the medical legal sector, these two things are extremely distinct and extremely important to distinguish. Anyway, so Roundup is a popular weed killer containing glyphosate as its active ingredient, initially registered in 1974 by Monsanto and now owned by Bayer. It is extensively used in agriculture and residential settings. Glyphosate is the most used herbicide in American agriculture, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. Users apply approximately 280 million pounds of glyphosate annually to an average of 298 million acres of land. Users apply Roundup in various forms, like liquid concentrate and ready-to-use versions, using different methods like spraying and wiping. Roundup is highly effective at managing weeds and is widely used in producing grains, nuts, fruits, vegetables. However, recent studies raise concerns about its potential health risks, particularly regarding Roundup's links to cancers, such as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Why is there a link, right? So, it's a year 2024. We all know that different pesticides, and this would be sort of considered a pesticide. Different pesticides have been causatively shown to have extensive, not only environmental injuries or damaging the environment, but also causing severe health injuries to humans. And, you know, not to mention all the effects it has on mice and frogs and fish, because there is something called pesticide runoff. I did a minor in conservation biology when I was in college, and so I learned a lot about this. Like, you know, like pesticides are pretty bad. Like, you know, it's a good thing because of course it prevents a lot of, you know, pests from reducing the yield of our produce. But of course, a lot of these pesticides that we use are, they don't go away. So, you know, they might just go into the river, or, you know, if you don't wash your produce appropriately, which a lot of us actually don't. Like, how many of us actually use baking soda to like wash our produce, right? Which we all should be doing. I myself tend not to do it because I'm lazy, but I mean, it just doesn't really go away, a lot of these chemicals. Okay, so how does Roundup work? Glyphosate disrupts plant growth by inhibiting crucial enzymes. After application, it's absorbed by plants and travels to the roots, shoots, and leaves, ultimately killing them. The enzymatic pathway targeted by glyphosate is not found in mammals, suggesting that the herbicide would not affect humans. However, the actual level of harm is still being questioned by many. And I'm going to link an actual scientific article. Let me see where it is. I have way too many tabs open for this one. I got very into it. So this is published in the NIH, the National Library of Medicine. It's titled "The Toxic Effects of Glyphosate on the Nervous System: A Systematic Review." I'll go ahead and link it. I'll probably post the pathway up here, maybe. But yeah, so it definitely does affect humans. Okay, so that's a key. All right. So glyphosate is non-selective and does not differentiate between weeds and other plants. Roundup kills most plants it contacts, requiring precise application. Some Roundup formulas affect plants within hours. Monsanto engineered its Roundup-ready crops, which can resist Roundup, in 1996. Using Roundup-ready crops allow farmers to spray fields without fear of crop loss. The innovation revolutionized agriculture and immediately led to a boom in Roundup use. So what does this mean? So basically Monsanto, and you know, like there's a ton of documentaries, like, you know, on Netflix and anywhere else, like where you can learn about this, but there are some plants that were bioengineered and then basically patented by Monsanto, so that they are owned by, like those seeds are owned by Monsanto. And deeper than that, the actual DNA is owned by Monsanto. And so for farmers to use it, they basically have to buy it from Monsanto, or they have to pay some like subscription fee or something. But basically they cannot, and if a farmer is like sort of working for Monsanto, then they cannot use other seeds. That's basically what this means. And so these genetically modified variants of these, whatever, tomatoes, wheat, whatever, they are resistant to glyphosate poisoning. And so you can just spray glyphosate all over, don't worry about it, everything else dies, but your glyphosate resistant or Roundup resistant plants will stay safe, in theory. Okay, so is Roundup safe to use? So this is where it gets kind of juicy. So it states here, in 2022, the EPA reaffirmed its claim that there are no risks of concern to human health from current uses of glyphosate when used correctly. However, independent studies suggest a link to non-Hodgkin lymphoma with long-term exposure. Bayer, remember now Bayer bought Roundup. So Bayer disputes these claims, citing over 800 studies affirming Roundup safety. Okay, and if you've watched my previous videos, and if you've kind of left the matrix and like are actually using, critical thinking and not believing everything you see on TV and stuff, a lot of these studies are paid for by those entities. So we all know this, right? So like Marlboro or something, what Philip Morris, right? Remember Philip Morris paid for a ton of these like tobacco or nicotine studies that said that nicotine or tobacco was like totally A-okay. And then it's like, well, yeah, like if Philip Morris, the producer of cigarettes, is going to pay you, you're going to say a certain thing, right? So, let's all take these with a grain of salt. I'm a medical doctor. It's like, I've learned through my career and now being a medical legal consulting physician, things are not as they seem. And it doesn't matter what level of education you go to, things are not what they seem. So in opposition to the EPA's claims, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans, meaning possibly causing cancer, in 2015 based on evidence of DNA damage and tumor formation in animal studies. The study conducted by IARC aimed to recognize potential causes of cancer, but it failed to account for the likelihood of exposure to doses of other carcinogens that may be encountered in the environment, like red meat, late night work shifts, and indoor emissions from burning wood, according to some researchers at Penn State University. So what they're saying here is that, like, hey, like, it's not the glyphosate, it's like, these farmers are working really long shifts at night. They're being exposed to smoke from burning wood. They're eating red meat. It's totally not the common denominator of the glyphosate. It's these other things that are pretty much dynamic and different per person, right? Anyway, a further study by the University of Washington published in Mutation Research found a 41% higher risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma with heavy glyphosate exposure. These differing conclusions highlight ongoing debates about Roundup safety. While the EPA reassures consumers, the IARC's findings and independent research underscore the importance of continued scrutiny regarding the potential health risks associated with glyphosate and therefore Roundup use. Okay. That's what Roundup is. Okay, I've been using this NHL thing over and over. What is it? So non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a type of cancer that begins in your lymphatic system. That's kind of like, it's sort of parallel to your blood system, your circulatory system. It transports a fluid called lymph. Lymph is basically all your white blood cells, and there's a lot of different things in there, like inflammatory cytokines, etc., that basically protect you. So it's sort of like the backbone of your immune system, you can think. So the lymphatic system, which is part of the body's germ-fighting immune system. In non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, white blood cells called lymphocytes grow abnormally and can form tumors throughout the body. So in the thumbnail, there was that kind of gnarly photo. So that's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So basically, what this lawsuit is basically finding, and for good reason, is that there have been thousands upon thousands of claimants. And here's the thing, many of them, I think, like many hundreds of them have already been settled by Monsanto and now Bayer, right? So it's very telling because it's like they're saying that, oh yeah, no, we don't have there's nothing wrong with glyphosate, there's nothing wrong with Roundup. And yet they're paying millions of, like they're paying about $11 billion thus far in 2024 just to settle all these cases. So yeah, it's a little bit fascinating. So again, like, if you watch my previous videos, you should be able to tell this by now, but this type of case is called an MDL, a multi-district litigation case. So it's not just, in one city or like one courthouse or whatever. It's all over the US. And there's even cases in Canada, etc. And like, it's a snowball effect. So like the more people are becoming aware of this, they're hiring lawyers, and the lawyers are putting this all into an MDL, which is a good thing because there is power in numbers, right? So, okay. So plaintiffs in the Roundup lawsuits claim that manufacturers of the herbicide failed to properly label the product with cancer risk warnings. In 2020, Bayer agreed to pay nearly $11 billion to settle most of these claims. However, thousands of active cases in the MDL and state courts across the US still exist. As of July 2024, that's now, there were 4,305 Roundup lawsuits pending in multi-district litigation in just Northern California. I don't even have a number for how many are in all of the US, but just in Northern California, 4,305. Okay, Internal corporate communications at Monsanto suggest the company may have hidden the dangers of the herbicide. Individuals affected by Roundup exposure, particularly those diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, can still file claims seeking compensation. Okay, so the next question, has Roundup been banned, right? Like, I'm sure you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, like, this seems horrible. Like, why does this exist? Despite Roundup's potential link to cancer, the US has not banned its use because the EPA says its review of available studies does not show that glyphosate has any, quote, human health risks of concern based on its current uses. EPA has determined Roundup has 1, no risks of concern to human health from current uses of glyphosate. 2, no indication that children are more sensitive to glyphosate. 3, no evidence that glyphosate causes cancer in humans. 4, no indication that glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor. Bayer reformulated its residential Roundup products in 2023, replacing glyphosate as the active ingredient for residential versions sold in the US. Bayer CEO Werner Baumann emphasized that the move was not because of danger to users, and quote, he said, "Let me be very clear that this is exclusively geared at managing litigation risk and not because of any safety concerns," end quote. However, glyphosate-based Roundup products are still available for agriculture and other large-scale uses. And yes, like you can buy this at like Home Depot, Lowe's, all these, Menards and stuff, like, you can buy it. So, like when I was doing this research, I was like kind of overwhelmed because there's so many ongoing lawsuits about this. But then when I was reading like the official statements, they're just denying everything. And so that's why we came up with this title, because it's just this never-ending insanity. And so like I found this article from, I think it was like 2018. Yes. So this was in 2018. So Monsanto ordered to pay $289 million in first Roundup lawsuit. So I'll read the article. On Friday, August 10th, 2018, a San Francisco jury ordered Monsanto pay Dwayne Johnson $289 million in compensatory and punitive damages after ruling that Monsanto's popular herbicide Roundup contributed to Johnson's development of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And here the product liability and okay. So, and then Monsanto was indeed found liable for the plaintiff's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So this is a product liability case, but this is bigger than just product liability. Like, this bleeds into personal injury. So these are a little bit different, right? So product liability basically means that a product is, there weren't sufficient warnings, or it's just designed in a very silly way that leads to injuries. A lot of blenders, if you know, like so a lot of them are designed very poorly. But personal injury cases are where like a human is injured by something outside of the healthcare field. Because if it's within the healthcare field, what is it called? It's called medical malpractice, right? So yeah, so we talk a lot about this in my previous videos. So so the very first case against, back then it was Monsanto, was in 2018. And they awarded the poor guy $289 million because they were like, if you're going to, if you're settling, you're basically saying, okay, mea culpa, my mistake. Here, like, have some money, like, we'll fix things. But the problem is that, like, as you saw from that quote, it's like they're going back and forth, and, even they had some sort of interaction with the EPA where, they had some sort of interaction with the EPA where now the EPA is saying no, like, it has zero evidence and da-da-da. But like, the World Health Organization and like, other people that are not, per se, if they're not US based, if like, or if they don't have any interest or any self-serving interest, like, they're a lot more objective, and they're saying, wait, no, like, there's definite healthcare risks to this chemical. Okay, and I'm going to, again, like I said, I'm going to link an article, like an actual medical journal article called "The Toxic Effects of Glyphosate on the Nervous System, a Systematic Review." And I'll just go ahead and just read the conclusion because it's way too long, or rather long for this video. I already read it, but okay. So basically what it found is that in the conclusion, the information summarized in the present review indicates that exposure to glyphosate, AMPA, or GBH could induce several toxic effects on the nervous system of all species studied. Exposure to glyphosate during the early stages of life can severely affect normal cell development by deregulating some of the signaling pathways involved in the process, leading to alterations in differentiation, neuronal growth, migration, and myelination. Glyphosate also seems to exert a significant toxic effect on neurotransmission, with the glutamatergic system being one of the most affected systems. And it goes on, and it explains why it's pretty darn bad. Okay, and then finally, there's another article that I'll link, but basically, as of March 2024, Monsanto has reached settlement agreements in nearly 100,000 Roundup lawsuits, and now has paid approximately, like I said, $11 billion. So now there are currently 54,000 Roundup cases left. So basically within that MDL, there's 54,000 cases left. Yeah, so I hope that helps. And you know, like I'll link another CNN article that came out like when was this? January 30, 2024. But there was another, case. Okay, so the title is Bayer ordered to pay $2.25 billion after jury concludes Roundup weed killer caused a man's cancer, attorneys say. A Pennsylvania jury handed down a $2.25 billion verdict against Monsanto and its parent company Bayer after determining its Roundup caused a man's cancer, and the cancer indeed was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay, so that was pretty darn recent. Great, so I hope this helps. I hope we all learned something. If you have a bottle of Roundup in your garage, I think you know what you should be doing with it. But yeah, thank you for watching. This is a dream come true to just be able to teach people this very niche subject and sector. So thank you so much. Thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you everyone who voted on our recent poll. We'll definitely make videos based on that poll, and we have such a checklist of videos already. We're already behind on our filming schedule, so sorry, and please be patient with us. We're still, we work full time, and so this is a passion project for us to make these videos. So thank you for staying with us. And again, if you do have any questions or any lawsuits that you'd like for us to go over, leave a comment below. Email us anytime. Our business email is on the profile page. But thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, I hope this helps. I hope this knowledge brings some sort of peace and closure to your lives. All right. Well, thank you. I'm Dr. Mizan, and until next time.